Hey, everybody. Hey, this is an interactive event, so feel free to interact with me or each other or parts of yourself. My name is Rick Dakan, and I am an author. One might ask, what the hell am I doing up here talking at a hacker convention? And indeed, I was going to ask myself that question, and then I thought about it, and I said, well, I always have something to say. So how I came to be here is I wrote a book called Geek Mafia, which came out about almost 2 years ago now. It's kind of crazy. And I was researching the sequel to Geek Mafia, which has some hacker stuff in it, and my basis for that hacker stuff was, things I read on the internet. And, that had to be right, but I wanted more, because I was going to write a sequel, which is for sale now, Geek Mafia Mile Zero. And I started looking around, I was like, what is this hacker thing? What do you guys do? And I found videos of Hope 2004, and I got all of them. I got all 70 hours of them. And I watched more than someone probably should of Hope. And I was really enthused, and I found myself talking about this, like every day I would go and I would talk to people. I was like, hey, there's these hacker people, and they have these conventions, and they talk about crazy things. And did you know that your computer is going to blow up pretty soon? And everyone was like, well, that's kind of interesting, which I took as like, you should write a book about it. I know no one said that to me. But that's how I see the world. Someone says, that's mildly interesting, and I decide I should write a book about it. So I said, I'm going to go to one of these hacker conventions, but I'm impatient, and the next Hope wasn't for a while. And so I looked on the internet, again, a source of much knowledge, and I found a convention in Atlanta, like 3 weeks from when I started looking. It was Interzone. I said, I'm going to go there. And so I booked a ticket and registered online, and I went a day early, and I'm about to reveal my. I'll get to that in a second too. I'm about to reveal my 0 day. I'm releasing a 0 day here at the convention. So for all of you, my contribution to the security effort specifically for HackerCons. But so I get a day early because I figure I'll check out the scene, and it's some crappy hotel out on the Beltway around Atlanta, and I trundle up to the desk, and the place is just deserted. There's no cars in the parking lot. It's Thursday afternoon. And I'm checking in, and this sort of squat guy with a big beard and a too-tight T-shirt, and on the T-shirt it has, in big letters, bow to my firewall, and this like grainy photograph of some guy screaming into a microphone. And I was like, well, I'm in the right place, and you're here for the hacker convention. And they said, yes, we are. And I said, do you guys need any help? I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book about hackers. I said, great. You can come and hang out. And so I went, and I hung out with them while I set up the network. So this is my 0 day, and I proceeded to go to 7 more hacker conventions that year. And as it turns out, you can just say you're writing a book about hackers, and nobody questions you. And they tell you all kinds of crazy things, and let you see all kinds of things that their bosses would fire them for, knowing that you're saying you're an author. I didn't have a publishing deal for this book. I didn't have really an idea what the book would be about, but everyone was like, hey, you're writing a book. I'd like to be in a book, or I'd like to read about people I know in a book, and so I did. Exactly. Which is pretty much Al's response to any question. Let me take my towel off. But so what I want to do today is update those of you who I have met previously about where things are with that book, which is now way overdue, and share some of the things that I discovered, saw, experienced as a total outsider to this hacker community. Because I really sort of threw myself in the deep end, and just that was pretty much all I did last year. I went to hacker events. Whenever there was one, anywhere in the country, or as it turned out in Germany, I went to these events. And when I started off writing or thinking about what this book would be, I had no idea what this community was or what I was going to find. So I had a pretty neutral viewpoint, I'd like to think. I knew that there were some things I found interesting. I knew that there were things I found distasteful. I knew that there were things that smelled bad. I knew that there were things that looked cool. And so, my original concept for the book and the book that I was pitching to publishers was sort of a a travel log, if you will, that would detail, the various things that I did over the course of this year. And through that, the prism of my experiences, you would get insight into the larger culture. And so I started doing this. I went to Interzone, and then right away, I found out that this culture is even crazier than I had suspected. Because on the second day, it was on the first day, these signs started popping up around the hotel, like criticizing the convention and the person running it, and pointing to this other room where something else was going on. And the room happened to be 4 doors down from mine. And so I was walking down the hall, and I peer in, and there's your standard issue Ramada 2-queen bed hotel room with about this many people in it, and including Skydog, who I had not met yet, and you were there, and I don't know if anyone else who was here was there. Yeah, there you go. And so and I just sat there, and they were having a counter convention. They were having Outer Zone, while the rest of the hotel was having Inner Zone, and I was like, that's insane. How cool is that? So I sat in on them and listened to them argue about NSA wiretapping for a while. And I ended up going out to dinner with a bunch of those people, and so got both sides of the event. And so I was like, okay, so this is like, I love this solution, and I kind of wish people would do that at every convention I've ever been to. Like back when I was studying to be a history professor, I would have loved it. At the American Philological Association, we had like a counter convention where we talked about, like, I don't know, knitting, or like how Sparta rules and Athens sucks, and screw those Athenian-centered historians. Obviously, none of you ancient historians here. But trust me, if you studied much Greek as I have, you would be on my side on this issue. And so after that, I went to Dakan, which was a whole other interesting experience. Woo! And I heard my favorite joke, which I use here. I was standing out in the hall, and this was in Cleveland, and somebody was looking for somebody else, and they said, hey, do you know where Chris is? Or do you know who Chris is? Because he didn't know who this person was. He said, yeah, he's in there. It's the heavyset guy with the black T-shirt. Which you should just feel free to use. I don't know who invented it, but it's a good one. Or the slim guy with the beard and the black T-shirt. That would be the other one, I guess. Goatee, yeah, long hair. There's a couple. And Dakan I liked a lot, because I got to dance with Heidi and Bruce Potter, who I finally met the face of the T-shirt, for those of you who don't know the end of that story, which was exciting because that was us. There was the 3 of us in a room about this size, dancing. It was like middle school all over again, except I was on the floor instead of on the wall. And I liked Dakan because it showed a lot of different sides besides just like the computer security stuff, which, to this day is still, for the most part, over my head. But it had that too, and I was continuing to learn. Then I went from there. It was you crazy bastards, right? It was CarolinaCon, which I don't even know. There was like 4 people at CarolinaCon, and all 3 of them were Al. No, it was a great. But it was a really great scene, and I loved. And this is what I loved about that thing, is everything I went to showed me a different side. CarolinaCon was this small group. It was local, and it was this local 2600 group, basically, who'd pulled together and done this convention. And there was actually, not even going to say actually, there was some really good content. It was a really compelling experience. It was fun. It was a community. It was these people doing this exciting stuff. And then from there I went to Hope, which is sort of the polar opposite in many ways. And Hope was chaos. Hope was random people volunteering to do things. And so, but the big thing that happened at Hope that really sucked me into this whole thing a little more is, I don't know, some of you may have heard about an arrest that happened at Hope last year in 2006. Did anyone hear this story? So I had volunteered to be the guinea pig for a private investigator named Stephen Rombaum. And Steve had spoken at, I think, the last, at least 2, maybe 3 Hopes. And he talks about privacy issues. And he wanted to show off his, like, wicked database skills. And he'd actually tried to do it the year before. And he found out so much about the guy that the guy backed out at the last minute. But I was like, I'm writing a book, and crazy things are good for books. So I will crazily sign this insane release and let Steve Rombaum dig in my life however much you want. I mean, you should have seen my lawyer's face when I brought him the release that Steve Rombaum gave him. He was like, you can't sign this. I'm like, no, it's for a book. I'm like, well, okay. It's not my life. And that was exciting because Steve found, he spent like 4 hours. That's it, 4 hours, never left his office in Brooklyn, and came up with like 500 pages of crap on me. And it was all in this big folder. And he was going to use it in this big presentation in the main hall like 1,000 people in the big Hope Hall up there, and about 45 minutes before we were supposed to go on stage, the FBI swooped in and arrested him, which was very exciting because none of us knew why, and they just carted him off. And the important part of that story is that I got slashed at it, though, so which was really great. I got calls from people I hadn't heard of from in years. It turns out that whole thing, Steve was released the next day, and now he and I are working on a book together, which I can't really talk about here too much, but but again, seeing this huge convention, of course, after that I went to Dakan, and that was even more super, super huge. More dancing, more people, more chaos, more everything. And then, by this point, I'd sort of given up all objectivity, because I really became enamored of this community and this culture. I just thought, hey, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on, and, I'd had to answer over and over again the question, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to a hacker convention. Hackers have conventions? I'm sure you've all had this experience, right? And I'm like, yeah, hackers have conventions. It's like, do they tell anybody? Like, what are they doing? Like, do you have to have his password, or, is it like in a parking garage somewhere? And so this was, obviously, it was this huge misconception about what the community is, and it was one that I was, I'd sort of lost my objectivity at this point. I was like, I love this community. I love what's going on here for the most part. And so my book was becoming more and more of an advocacy piece. And then the thing that just made me just love everything about it was actually, I had met this guy at Dakan named McFly, who's a German. And he's big in, does anyone know McFly or seen him talk? Woo! Yeah. So, he talked at Dakan. And McFly is in the Chaos Computer Club in Germany and sort of been a real active for a while. And he and I got to talking, and then for reasons I do understand, because I said I was writing a book. I was like, hey, I'm writing a book. He's like, would you like to come and have a guided tour of German hackerspaces for 2 weeks? And I said, yes, that sounds like fun. And so has anyone ever been to Germany and seen what the CCC does over there? Anyone in this room at all? Does anyone know anything about the CCC in Germany? So the CCC is the Chaos Computer Club, and they were founded in 1984, and they're in many ways the polar opposite of like 2600. They are super organized. I mean, this is a big surprise that this German outfit is really super organized. And so in Germany, they have CCC, they have the overall Chaos Computer Club, which is founded, and then they have local groups, kind of like you guys have local 2600 groups here, or does they still do the DEF CON, whatever that version of that is called? So those, and I know other people, there's the BinRev groups, they had a couple of those. Are those still going? Okay. So stuff like that. So they have that ethos, and in smaller communities, they meet somewhere like, I went to a local convention in Darmstadt. It was a Netzel Rhein-Main Chaos Days 5, which took me a long time to get that down. I would just look at the string of letters and be like, Darmstadt. But then in the bigger cities, they have permanent hacker spaces that the CCC has set up, which is where I ended up sleeping for most of the trip. And these are like devoted spaces that the local CCC, they collect dues, usually it's a sliding scale between 20 and 30 euros a month. And we had the talk that only a few of us were here this morning about setting up a nonprofit. And in Germany, they have this legal institution called a Verein, which is sort of like a club. It doesn't have to be a nonprofit, but they're culturally very popular in Germany. Stamp collectors, sports fans, any group of people that want to get together and share something, and no one's in it necessarily to make money or do anything. They make these friends. And so there's all these amazing. I went to the one in Cologne, and which is right next to. I don't know. It's not a whorehouse. No, not press, but just an S&M parlor, let's say. Lounge. Well, there's professionals working there, so, facility. But, they've got the network set up, and they have, meetings, and they do what I was really impressed with. One of the things they do there is every month, they do community outreach. They have like an open house day at the CCC space where anybody can just come in and say, hey, I'm having a problem with my computer, or hey, what do you do here? And they also do youth outreach programs, high school programs, and they have contests and all these kinds of things. So we went to that one. I went to the space in Hamburg, which was also very cool, which was the original space. I got to interview a lot of the, two of the 3 surviving founders of the Chaos Computer Congress, who hate each other now. So that was really, so like, I got to talk to one of the early guys in Darmstadt, and he was happy to talk to me. And then when I got to Hamburg, there was this guy who's sort of been ostracized, and now he's given up on the CCC, and he's all about lockpicking and competitive lockpicking. And when he found out, Stefan, and when he had found out that I'd talked to the other guy, he was like, oh, okay, I want you to hear my side of that story. And then by the time I got to Berlin, and there was Andy and of Jason Scott, where I first heard about it, the Tron, the whole Tron thing with Wikipedia and all that. Hey, look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Bow to my firewall. So you should do a second edition of those, I think. I know, that's why you should do a second edition. So there, I got all these different stories about it, and I want to, and Andy told me this one really great thing, that there were 2 kinds of hackers in Germany, and I think it really applies here in the U.S. He said there are 23s and there are 42s. Can anyone guess what the meaning of that is? So there's 20, and it refers to the touchstone piece of literature for the group. So there's the 23s are the hackers who are all about dueling cameras here, are all about the Illuminatus trilogy. Like for them, their worldview is about conspiracies and about, fighting the powers that be and discordia and all that kind of stuff. And they're real into the politics. And then there's the 42s, and for them, their touchstone piece of literature is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And for them, it's all about the fun and the doing it and the wacky technical projects and, Babelfish. I don't know. And that was a really exciting, insight into the group. And I think it kind of applies here that the culture embraces a lot of different interests, which just have, some commonalities. And then the coolest place I went to, which I totally recommend going to the website, and even though it's in German, there's some cool stuff to see there. There's another Verein that was sort of associated with hackers, a lot of crossover. It's called CBase, base.org, I believe. And there's a little video there you can watch, which they do an alien autopsy on a chicken at one point. So basically, CBase was an amazing place, and I only got to hang out there for one night. And they, in Berlin, there's this huge television tower from the 60s that the East Germans erected that the locals call the Toothpick, but it's the tallest structure in Berlin. And so these guys, about 10 years ago, decided that, that's not a television antenna. It's the communications spire of a spaceship that's crashed underneath Berlin, obviously. And that they were, in fact, the crew of that spaceship, and their job was to rebuild the spaceship, and that's what CBase is. And they have this, now they're in their 3rd space, and it's 2 stories in this great old building right near the Chinese embassy on the River Spree. And they just do amazing. It's like one of these hacker spaces on steroids. They have a full bar, and they have a performance venue, and bands come and play there, and they've got the network set up, and then down below they have a full recording studio and a full wood shop and a sewing studio and a library and a network room, and they have barbecues out back. And then the next day, the day after I was there, the German Pirate Party was having their founding meeting there, and they also play Jugger, which has everyone seen that Rutger Hauer movie? I can't remember the name of it, where they play that sport where you put a dog's head on a spike. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Can anyone remember? What's the name of the movie? Yes. So in Germany, there's a league of people who play that game, but with a silicone dog's head. So there's a couple people there, and it involves like weapons and Joan Chen in some way. So I was like, this is an amazing thing. I mean, this is so cool. And then I came back, and I went to a couple other cons. I went to TorCon, where we actually finally gave the speech that Rambam was supposed to give originally before he got arrested. And there's actually a little worry that they were trying to arrest him again in California, but the California people wouldn't do it. And then I went to ShmooCon. That was my final, or Phreaknic and then ShmooCon. I'm sorry, Phreaknic last year. And so what I want to say is that having done all this, having gone to 8 or 9 or 10 of these things now, there's a lot of, in my opinion, really important things happening in the hacker community. And I feel, not an obligation, but certainly a strong desire to try and tell more people like me about it. because one of the things that was happening just as I was getting into this was the whole Sony rootkit fiasco, which I'm sure everyone in this room is familiar with, and no one outside of this room is familiar. You talk to people at the time, and they had no idea what was going on. They had no idea, that the original first chapter of my book, which I've written about a third of, and I'm going to scrap, but it was called Celine Dion Will Kill Your Computer, because that was one of the titles that had the rootkit on it, and just people had no idea. And now more recently, there was something, like unlocking, it's become more prevalent now. There's been a lot of talk about people hacking the iPhone and unlocking the iPhone and that kind of thing. It's starting to enter into the zeitgeist more strongly, but still the hacker community, as I'm sure all of you are aware, is woefully misunderstood. Now, part of the problem is, let's take a little poll here. Who here would use the term hacker to self-describe? So, who would call themselves a hacker? What? You're looking at yourself in the mirror. You're looking at yourself in the mirror and Al is naked. No. Right. So anyway, just let me get that again. So who would self-describe as a hacker? So Jason and I were having this conversation at Dakan while he was sitting on a Segway in the middle of a hotel. No, at a convention center selling books or videos. I'm sorry. And he brought up a really good point: is that the word hacker is almost drained of any real definition at this point. He likened it, and I think this is really good, to the word biker. Like, biker means really different things to different sets of people, And I think that's part of the problem that hackers have. I don't know. Do people feel that way? That's so part and part of it is that even people in the know use the terms interchangeably with, hackers being the people who break into other people's computers and do bad things, and you listen to Twit, who should know better, right? And he uses hacker for the bad people, and he talks about hacking the iPhone. In Germany, that's actually one of the things that they really managed to do is win that cultural battle of the difference between cracker and hacker. Now, they're not faced with all the extra baggage that the word cracker has in the United States. So so it was an easier battle for them. So, and there's black hat, white hat, I guess we have here, which I tend to use. And actually, that's a funny little story. One of the places I submitted the original book proposal to was an anarchist collective in Oakland, and they of course have to vote on everything, and they deadlocked, which was the first time it had ever happened in the 15-year history of publishing. They had a deadlock on whether or not to go ahead with this book, and they got caught up on the terms black hat and white hat, because they thought I was using them in a sort of judgmental way, or I don't know. I wasn't there, so I wasn't there to explain to them. But it's just sort of an interesting object lesson in how the words that you are all used to, or we're all used to describing hackers, like, once you get outside of this room, people don't really understand. And so what I want to do with this book now there's this new company, the company that's publishing Geek Mafia Mile Zero, and we'll be reissuing the first Geek Mafia, wants to publish the nonfiction hacker book, which I'm very excited about. But I don't want to do the original model that I had, the sort of travel log, see things through the prism of Rick. One, I'm kind of sick of myself, and two, it sort of dates the thing to this particular, couple-year period of time. And so what I want to do is, reach out to you folks at this point and say, what would you like a book about hackers, about the hacker community, to contain? Like, how would you like to be represented? Because this is a great opportunity for you, because I have both, come to love this community and lost all of my ego about the particular project. So at this point, I am, I have a lot of other stuff going on, a lot of writing on. I am more than willing to be your funnel, to be your mouthpiece. I will, of course, edit it. I will make it readable, censor it, or, refine it, but It depends. Yes, actually, no, it doesn't depend. Yeah, I'll put your top back on. But I need your help on this if you're willing to help. I mean, I could just do it, and I think it would be pretty good and pretty representative, but it wouldn't be nearly as good as it will be if I have input from people like you, people who really the book is about or will be about. So I have, my list of topics that are taken from my original idea of what I want to put in this book, covering the sort of basics, and I could go over that, but I'd kind of just like more to hear from people here in the audience about, like, what's the first thing that springs to your mind, and, like, questions that occur to me is, how would you define the word hacker? I have a definition that I came up with. I came up with the broadest definition I could think of, which is that most people, like myself, when they look at a piece of software or technology, asks, what does it do? And a hacker looks at that same thing and says, what can I do with it? But that's really broad, and it's a little play on words. But I'm not sure it actually gets to the heart of the matter. And so I would like some people to let me know. What do you think? So does anyone have any ideas off the top? Like, let's start with this. Let's start with this question: how would you define hacker? Whether it just applies to yourself or in general. Let's start with the Pope in the back there. Someone who makes... I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. A life pursuit. Someone whose life pursuit is to circumvent limitations. That's pretty good. What do people think of that? You like that? Show of applause? Yeah? No? Yeah. Does anyone have any others? Yep. Right.
Simply somebody who's proficient at a certain skill or concept and tries to really care about it. That's what they do. I don't know.
So, I mean, that's sort of in the sense of... ESR. Raymond. Yeah. A little bit. Okay. Well, and that's that interesting issue. So is being a hacker a state of mind, or is being a hacker a skill set? State of mind. Okay. But is it a result in a specific skill set, or? Go ahead. Is that from Bruce? So having a curiosity and the desire to satisfy that curiosity. I like that. Driven by curiosity, rewarded by achievement. Now, I like that, but at the same time, what is the difference between a scientist, which I think that definition would apply to, and a hacker? I mean, is there I think that's true, everything you just said, but... Scientists are bound by reality and hackers are not bound by reality? So I would say the science has the obsession and the abilities, but I think the hackers have obsession too, don't you? But are not bound by the rules. Okay. So that's the difference then for you guys. What? Hack is just putting some shit together and seeing what happens, rather than following the scientific. Now I just got a text message from Bruce Potter who would like it to be about sex parties and ponies. So, and I think we can safely say that we now know what Bruce's new home business is going to be. So this is very exciting. Now that he's left Booz Hamilton. No, does he have something better? Trying to define the hacker. It is a fool's errand, and yet people are going to keep using the word, and so are you just going to cede it, or are you going to at least throw something else out there for them? Yes, it's a fool's errand, but, yeah, there you go. What? A reinventor, like in the sense of like a repurposer. Okay, so everything else is, yeah, which gets to what I was, and I think that's a big part of it. Now, that's a good point. Well, right, that's reinventing. You're repurposing. It's repurposing, or you're reinventing. The patent office seldom agrees with me, as it turns out. You like that it has no definition, that it's just, it's like Fnord. Gene.
I was having a discussion with one of my coworkers, and he's a technology guy, but he's not a hacker. His main thing is he does it for the money. You know, IT is for money.
He does the same kind of, he does IT for the money. He doesn't, okay.
Right. And I explained to him that to us, this is an art form.
So hacking is an art form, which I would agree with. I think that's, would people agree that hacking is an art form? All right. So that people, you know, I think. Go ahead. Right. There's lots of different skills that. So is that just a matter of having the right carrot for the occasion? Motivation. So I think I don't know what time it is, but I want to move through some other aspects of this. Like, another big question is, what are the topics that should be in a book about hackers? I mean, so a lot of what I want to, I want to explain the basics of security and computer security and those kinds of things, but I also want to go beyond that. It is about being free, but let me clarify what I want to do in this book a little more. Is that I want this book to have some specifics, you know. I mean, because it's not a rewrite of the Hacker Manifesto. It's not, you know, how did I call it to somebody? This may be part of the title, like a guide to hackers in their natural environs, like a field guide to hackers in their natural environs. Audubon Society might be publishing it. Who knows? But so I do want to like put in some specifics about the kinds of things. So about computer security, about, you know, Wi-Fi hacking and the zombie hackers. I saw some of those last night. Apparently they shit in elevators. Yeah. So what does anyone like lockpicking, for instance, is something that I'm going to put in the book just because, you know, it's second. Social. Let's talk about social engineering, which I'm in the interest of stating my biases, I hate the term. But I know it's very popular, and I want to talk about it, and I want to address it. But I've heard lots of different definitions, and I want someone here that doesn't have my biases to give me a definition of social engineering that isn't just lying to people or conning people. And I love lying and conning to people. I'm doing it right now. Schmoozing. Okay, using your charm to convince them to tell you what they really shouldn't. I don't know, buffer overflow in public space. I like that. David. The Game. No, I haven't. That's by that magician, right? It's picking up girls, right? Yeah. Yeah. And isn't he a magician, though? And that's the guy who has the TV show. Okay. And the guy who has the TV show on VH1 is a magician. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking of. Based on what? Oh, anyway, let's not get too far into that crazy world. But I mean, so I guess that's this social engineering brings up a separate issue. So I saw a talk that Dark Tangent gave, and he was talking about, you know, you don't talk about good and bad plumbers, you just talk about plumbers, and hackers are just like plumbers. It's a skill set. And I didn't actually quite agree with I didn't quite agree with that because, and when we've gotten at it here with this definition of social engineering, there's a certain, like, dangerous frisson that comes with the word hackers, right? It's not plumbing. I mean, there's something more dangerous. There's an illegal something lurking out there. I mean, you don't hear about rogue plumbers. You don't hear about, maybe they're out there, but I mean, there's not like, there is no edge, there's no danger associated with the word plumber unless you're G. Gordon Liddy. Thank you very much. So let's talk about that. How do you think the dark side of hacking should be presented? There is. This is why pirates are. It's that romantic idea of breaking the law and feeling bad. How important do you guys think that is to the hacker community? Is that something that you can that you use, like Johnny Depp uses pirate? Does that make you sexy and therefore people pay more attention to you, or does that make you dangerous and therefore people shun you? Or I imagine it's some combination of the two. But not all women love a hacker. What was that? Yeah, actually, this is I want to get this quote out there, which some of you may have heard. Val, the one of the founders of the Chaos Computer Club, who's since passed away, had a great phrase. I think it was his originally, as it was quoted to me, it was his originally when the CCC was getting started, and it was illegal in Germany to use a modem. You could not own a modem. Just Deutsche Telekom said no, and the government said, okay, Deutsche Telekom says no, so no. I don't know if that's exactly how that worked, Jason, so don't jump all over me. But the point is, he had this great quote, but they were using acoustic couplers, and they were using things, and they said they were just being future compliant with the law, which I think is a really great phrase, and I urge other people to adopt it. And so maybe is that sort of what you're getting at with this idea that depending on how stupid the law is. Now, what do you guys think? Do you think there's a way to overcome this dangerous, badass, every time you hear the word hackers on CNN, it's never in a good context? Right. Okay, separating hacker from cyber terrorist, and I think that's Bruce is shaking his head. No, well now you have to say something since you shook where I could see it. Oh, what was that? Yeah, but we got your text message, so it's like you've been here. Yeah, and the shirt. Where'd you go? Oh, sorry. What was your point?
So my point is, it's about the intent, right?
It's about the intent.
Attack and defense. I mean, pretty much. And it doesn't really, moral issues and terrorists is all how you define, your political view of the universe.
Right.
Terrorists, those are free fighters. Cyber terrorist term, I think, is just like bullshit. Is standard issue terrorist term that we throw around every day.
And I would agree with that. And I would say maybe that that hackers are not analogous to plumbers; they're analogous to gun owners. Would that be? How would people feel about that? They're more analogous to gun owners than they are to, or even, let's take guns and gun control, kitchen knife owners. I mean, like sharp knife owners. You can chop up your family with it, or you can, make me a really nice meal, which I suggest you do. Knifers? Yeah, we'll change from hackers to knifers. This gentleman wanted to say something.
Oh, I just wanted to relay a story that may make the whole bad hacker, good hacker kind of moot. On my way down here just now, I passed a civilian in the hall, and he said, "Hey, man, what's going on this weekend? What is this?" I was like, "Oh, it's a hacker convention." He goes, "Oh, cool. So I'm having some problems with my computer. Can I give it to you and you can fix it?" I was like, "What?" Okay, sure, yeah, no. Yeah. What do you got over here? Right. I mean, hack is a word. If you go into the technology, there's hacking your iPhone, hacking idea. It's like a whole. And I think that's. I would say that on balance, that's good. Would you guys agree with that? Are you happy with that? That. Exactly. That is the meaning of the word before.
What if you don't care? I mean, that's fine, but I mean, okay. What does it matter? That's a question. I think, and here's why I think it matters to a degree, is that I think there are important things being said in things like that. I don't know that it has to be labeled, but it's going to be labeled, right? You know, and so there's a certain cachet in the brand name hacker, right? I mean, so is it? I guess my question back to you: is it worth trying to recover some of that value and use it?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Probably not.
I think it could matter in this case. But some of those people that were trying to change perception, you know, they might grow up and end up in some part of an industry or government that if you don't have a negative connotation of a hacker, you might reach out to a community like this when you really needed to. But if you have a negative connotation, you might not. I mean, even in our federal government, we're beginning to see in the past 2.5 years, you know, certain areas of business saying, you know what, why are we fighting these guys? You know, let's start going and talking a little bit more and opening. So I think it matters in that.
Yeah, and I would tend to disagree with Al and agree with you on that particular issue, and it's not just because of those pants. It's because I think he has a good point that when you, what would be an example of something similar? So a similar social movement where we've locksmith? Well, no, but no one ever feared locksmiths, did they? All right.
People automatically assume, you know, it's like, oh, they're not going to make my house more secure. They're going to be the one that knows how to open my door when I'm gone.
They know how to open my door when I'm gone? That's my next book, How My Door Was Opened While I Was Gone. So Elizabeth Shue's still working. Anyway. So are there any? Let's go to this area. I don't know where am I on time? 5, 10 more minutes. Let's go to this. Are there any just really gross misconceptions about hackers, the hacking community, computer security, technology in general that you think are important that people that might be addressed? That's true. So we can all agree that the Hackers movie is not 100% accurate. I have, actually. What was that? Yeah. So, I mean, that's the first big one, as I mentioned, is that, yes, hacking is not illegal, per se, although the Digital Millennium Copyright Act might beg to differ in some circumstances. Does anyone else have any other, like, big misconceptions about hackers? All right. Oh, movie, like the OS that appears in movies? Yeah. That's only if you work at Geek Squad, right? That's the. Anything else? Any other big? Yes. Right. That is a good point. That just calling yourself a hacker. Well, but this goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's you could very well have someone who just graduated from ITT Tech and is a hacker, right? I mean, how much of it is skill set and how much is it mindset or how attitude, intent? Here, let's go him, then you. That is a good question. Can you be a hacker? Like, is being a hacker fundamentally a byproduct of technology, or can I be? So it's it's almost like that's the definition of Heidi Potter, right? Yeah, that too. And but like kung fu, right? Isn't that the traditional definition of it? Just means knowledge acquired through effort over time, right? Yeah, like mechanics, auto modders, if you will. So crafters, makers. What were you going to say, sir? Right. Well, but you'll find that in almost any line of, if someone's giving out certifications, someone else is giving out bogus certifications. So I am actually giving out bogus certifications later, so if you want to see me about that. Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Actually, can you hack this Hotmail for me? Yes, that is. Not all of you hack my Hotmail, which I appreciate, because if you want my, passwords to the porn sites, you just have to ask. What's your password? Well, it depends on the site. I've learned some. I don't use the same one for every site because you never know. Yeah, all right. Pay for it. No, free the knowledge, free the porn, let it be out there into the world. I don't know. So as I'm going to wrap this up, does anybody else? Let me see if I'm going to look at my notes for the first time and see. Rootkit, DRM, 22 is perfect. So here's my little. So my being inspired by Seabase inspire you. So I really loved this, as I mentioned earlier, this place in Germany I went to, Seabase, and I wanted to have something like that back home in Sarasota, Florida, someplace where people could get together and just do cool shit. So a couple months ago, I founded the Church of Cthulhu, which is we're renting a space. We have about 2,000 square feet, and organized as a church, and we are a church that but we don't believe in Cthulhu, so don't worry about that or really anything else. But I found that, just like Seabase used the spaceship, I'm using Cthulhu because it gives people a hook. It gives people something to get in. It gives you a binding aesthetic to decorate the space, and it gives you an excuse to have a big Halloween party in not enough days. So, that's my own big, huge thing that I've undertaken, and really as a direct result of having worked on this book over the past year and a half or so, that you can go out and, do crazy things, and sometimes people will follow you. So I highly recommend going out and doing crazy things that don't involve stealing wireless access points or taking a dump in the elevator. Yeah. So in closing, I have some books here, which you're welcome to buy. You can also, they will be available for free, so you don't have to steal them. I'm licensed under Creative Commons for download. The first one is. The second one will be within a couple weeks. And if anybody else has any ideas or questions or comments or thoughts, nothing else but those. No, rootkits or anything like that. Yeah, the books are $10, which is like 40% off the cover price. So you cannot beat that. You can, but I won't let you. Froggy.
Well, I just wanted to say that actually my presentation is the same thing this morning right now.
Yeah, which is in just a mere hour and 5 minutes.
An hour after this one, but it's going to kind of expound upon the things we're talking about here.
Excellent.
It's going to be kind of like part two.
And we planned it that way, Froggy and I did. So last night while watching Dark City, yeah. I'm a great spooner. So with that, I bid you all a fond adieu. Thank you.